Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Phil, it is good to be with you. As always, happy to be on the podcast. And for all of those you guys listening out there, I hope you are enjoying your week. And a lot to talk about, as always. Although, admittedly, Phil and I have no idea what we're going to talk about. And maybe that becomes obvious.
Well, there's so much to talk about. It just didn't make sense to put any bullet points or anything. We're gonna miss something. This was a busy week.
It sure was.
It actually made me even think. I was like, man, by the time our podcasts come out, so much stuff happens lately.
Yep. You're right.
Like, I want to talk to you about something that I think that you have unique insight on.
Okay.
Are you okay talking about previous careers?
Sure, we can talk about, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you were in the restaurant business, right?
Oh, good. For a minute there, I thought you were going to bring up my the male stripper days.
No,
I'm
no,
kidding.
none of the stripper stuff, none of the OnlyFans that you got now. How is that going?
Oh, it's going great.
Okay, Mike, have you ever experienced Amazon groceries?
Yes.
Okay, having them delivered to your home?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I don't know how long ago that was or how it happened in your region, but here you go online, you pick whatever it is, and then at the end, it's just almost like any other Amazon. You pick the delivery date and only difference is they automatically put a tip for the delivery driver. They have been doing this for years.
Okay.
And it's always bothered me, period, the automatic tips. Even though you know me personally, Mike, I tip better than the automatic. I am not a cheap person, so that's not what this is about.
Yep.
It's just the principle of that I don't get to decide. Like Kamala Harris. Anyway. So on Amazon, like I said, the tips are automatic. So, but this last week, I had an unusually large food order. It's the largest food order I have ever had by a long shot.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you typically order Amazon groceries? Is this a normal occurrence? Like, what percentage of your groceries do you get from Amazon?
90%.
Okay. All right.
So
you're doing it a lot.
Right. There's a delivery minimum every week.
Sure.
And then we may forget something and, because you can get it like in 2 hours.
Yep.
So, but here's the thing. I've always been disgusted with the tipping, but this one pissed me off. The dollar amount was so high that the percentage for the tip for him was 3 figures. I don't even want to give the number, the actual number. Yep. It was a 3-figure tip for them to bring me a few bags. It wasn't even a lot of stuff. It was just a much
high dollar amount stuff.
Yeah, I got a lot of specialty meats and liquor.
Yep.
And so they were literally going to carry less than my normal ones, and I was going to pay a lot of money for a tip to this guy. So my question to you is, one, how do you feel about tipping in general? Do you feel obligated? Should a person feel obligated? I don't even want to pin you down. What is your opinion about tipping?
Well,
in modern 2025.
Well, similar to you, I've always was brought up with kind of the mentality that I'm a big tipper, I guess, if you were going to look at it
I know
in
you are.
comparison to a lot of people. However, and with my background in the restaurant business, for sure, I am a very strong proponent of merit-based tipping. So, it's not an expectation, meaning that I don't think that anybody should look at it as you are required to tip. I mean, look, at the point at which it becomes required, it defies the definition of a tip, right? So a tip is a gratuity going to the person that provided you the service, and you're tipping based on your satisfaction with their service. So, and I get it becomes a very difficult and challenging thing, particularly like as my background would suggest in the restaurant business. Let's hypothetically say the kitchen came out with, you ordered a hamburger and you wanted it medium rare and it came out well done. You're pissed off. It's not right. That, and I get not everybody thinks this way, but that is really not indicative of the quality of the service that you got from your server, the person that you're tipping, because obviously that wasn't their fault. Now, if they never come, don't pay any attention to your table, or you see them over there in the corner by the hostess station on their phone, flirting with their boyfriend that doesn't work there or whatever. There's a lot of scenarios that go into this, but it's funny you bring up Amazon, because I actually ordered a bunch of I was ordering groceries from Amazon while I was building my current rig when I was in Connecticut. So that was only, I don't know, what was it, a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And I did notice that, what you're saying, and I've always I mean, it's the same kind of problem I have when they it's not as common in the United States, but it certainly is, as an example, down here in Mexico, where at the end of your dining experience at a restaurant, they cash you out. Everybody down here has the mobile units. It's more frequent now in the United States, but down here it's always that way. And they come over and it's preset with an amount in the tip. You know what I mean? So, like, if you want to tip less, you actually would have to hit the arrow down button.
So let's agree or disagree on something quickly. We've both traveled. If, in my opinion, from my observations, you tell me if yours are different. Tipping is kind of unusual in a lot of places, and the places that it does exist, it doesn't have the obligation that it has here.
Correct.
And the worker is not, they don't need it as bad. Like,
yes. No. I mean, that's part of our American system, the way it's set up. You
agree then?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. It's expected. It is a regular custom, and let's cut to the chase. They don't make enough money without the tips. It's just that is actually a true statement. It's weird. I'm in an environment here in Mexico, which is a little bit in between. So the tipping, let's put it this way, the standard tip here is 10% in Mexico. So it's less than your typical, which, by the way, America used to be kind of 15%, and then it gravitated to 20. And now, I know people that are upset if it's not 25%. So it's definitely ranged, but here it is less. They've got a lot of American influence that has come down here, I think, is the bottom line to it. So it is definitely more expected, certainly here now. But like, as you mentioned, Phil, like in many, many countries, it's an aberration or a weirdity. If you were to leave money, if you left it on the table, they'd run out in the street and chase you down and give it to you, because they're like, oh, you left something on the table, right?
I've had someone feel insulted and wondered, did I think they were poor?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's a cultural thing for sure. Yep, absolutely. But it bothers me. It bothers me in Amazon because if I want a tip, I feel like that it's kind of like getting pizza delivery at your house. Like I want to tip the driver. Maybe I'm old school, but I want to give the guy cash directly to my driver because then I know that it went to him.
Mm.
You know, I mean, I don't know where the tip on Amazon goes. For hell, all I know, it went to Jeff Bezos in his yacht.
Right.
Well, who knows?
Right. Even before online started, back in the day before there was online, like I might be, let's say I was in a sushi restaurant and they'll have the little jar on top and you just throw it in. It's supposed to go to everybody.
Yeah.
I put the money in there for them and then I give my I don't even know what you call him, the guy who does the sushi for it. I reach over and then I hand him a tip completely separate from that to make sure that once it's divided up, he don't end up getting 50 cents.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I want to give the tip to the person that gave me the service.
Yes.
And I feel it's unfair divided tips because there's always someone exceptional and there's always someone below and he's getting what you got.
Well, what you just talked about is a hotly contested conversation in the restaurant business. It was when I owned my restaurants, whether that was a tip pool, whether people could, have their own tip, whether it went into the quote entire front of house of the restaurant, which means your server staff. What was it also shared with the back of house, which is your kitchen staff? So that's never been solved, by the way. It's still an ongoing battle. And that's a cultural shift and a change that's occurring and continues to occur in the United States. And it's a challenging thing, but I hate to say it, it all comes back to the fact that really none of these people are making a living wage in the first place. And that's probably the biggest problem is they're just simply not making enough money. And without those, which by the way, is why places have gone to splitting a tip or a tip share where the kitchen or back of house staff is involved in that because, these guys aren't getting paid great either. And they're obviously without them, you're not getting your hamburger. The problem that's come up and it affected when I was in that business was that nowadays, contrary to what it used to be like, almost everybody is paying almost everything 100% by credit card, right? So now the even including the tip. So now the tips are coming into restaurant establishments, and this opens up a whole can of worms where really the ownership, the restaurant company, is taking the money and has to divide it out into. And by the way, in the old days, you'd slip your server $5. Now, it's coming into their paycheck. It's taxable. There's all sorts of stuff going on. It's once again, it's another.
Well, almost every year here in Washington, there's some famous beard award-winning chef's restaurant being shut down because of a lawsuit.
Yep.
Between him and his workers where he's been stealing the money. And then almost every time, 6 months later, the guy's shelling out $1 million, $2 million because he did do it.
Yep. And that is, that's an issue. And certainly I can remember being in the business. I didn't want any part of the tips. Like from an organizational standpoint, damn, you don't want to get involved in that. They're super complicated. We had restaurants that had, percentages where the server and then the bartender gets tipped out a certain percentage, and then a certain percentage goes to your front of house, like your support staff, like runners or, your hostess or whatnot. Complicated as hell. It's just complicated as hell. What gets me though is when I got a tip line when I go to McDonald's and I order on a touch screen, and then I go and I pick up food, nobody's done anything, and yet there's somehow tips involved in McDonald's. That never was the case before.
That was the next thing I wanted to cover. Like I went to a barbecue joint we didn't want to sit down. So they have a complete, you go around the complete other side. There's a special door you go through, and all they do is hand you your order.
Right.
They got a tip jar.
Yes.
I mean, everybody has a tip jar now. Everybody's got a tip jar for everything that they do.
And this is America basically covering your ass and recognizing that many of these professions, and the reason we can't get good help, and it is very simple. They're not paid enough money. We have an economic disparity in the country where you have a super wealthy and you've got a large group of poor people at the bottom, and your middle class is disappearing rapidly. Then they're going to one of the other two classes.
Mike, you're going to remember this, but some of our younger listeners they're going to think I'm making this up. But there was a time that a waitress was a career. I knew people who literally started out in a diner. They learned the different etiquettes and learned how to do wines and serve and things like that. And they worked their way up and literally got to like six figures as a waiter.
Yeah.
That's impossible now. Unless you're
right.
like the maitre d' of a...
Even when I first started my restaurant group, which was, close, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, we had people that were definitely full-time career restaurant staff.
Owned a home, owned a car. If they didn't, it's because they were they had the type of career where they traveled to different places seasonally, and those people would make even more money.
That's right. But times have changed.
So, Mike, let me back to my Amazon bill. It made me realize that it's cheaper here to get bullion gold bars delivered to my home than it is to get alcohol and meats because there's also other taxes.
Right.
Like it literally was almost double the price for my liquor once they added taxes, delivery charges, and they added the special taxes they have for the alcohol.
Right. Yep.
It's literally almost like half the price.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's almost like you should not get alcohol delivered by Amazon.
I don't know that I ever have, but that's an interesting observation. So they're taxed. Is it? I don't know how it works in your state. Are they circumventing the state distribution network, or does Amazon acquire it through the state of Washington? You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. I'm just wondering, because in most states, liquor law is you have to purchase liquor from a state approved entity, right? Like, well, I mean, some states have their own liquor stores, and then other states have liquor stores that are licensed as redistributors.
Other than like Sam's Club and like Bevmo, you ever heard of Bevmo?
Sure. Yep.
Stuff like that. Other than that, I don't know anything like similar to an Amazon that can deliver legally liquor.
Interesting.
I don't know why they're able to deliver. Maybe it's because this is where they're originally from or something.
That could be. Yep, that could be.
But it's not worth it.
So note to everybody listening out there that are in the Pacific Northwest, go to the store and get your liquor. Don't get it on Amazon.
The initial price, you'll be like, oh, I'm saving $2 on this bottle of whiskey, but they get you on the back end, bruh.
Yeah. But isn't that so true? It's just like anything else. Like so we have Costco down here. We have Costco and Sam's Club and Walmart. And I went to Costco the other day, and I have the same feeling about Costco here in Mexico as I had back in the States. And it's like, it seems like a good deal, but then you always walk out of that store and you question, was that worth it? Because first of all, you inevitably you buy more of whatever you got than you actually want, right? Because everything comes in huge quantities. And I just don't know if the prices are really that good, to be honest. I just, I don't know.
You have to, one, go in with a plan and stick to it.
Agreed.
That's the first thing.
Agreed.
The second thing, because of the quantities that they give you, in general, my advice is you need to either have a business that you're supplying, or 4 or more children. You need a family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
We have Costco because we like the gas. I literally have a membership because I like to get a hot dog every now and then.
Yeah, me too.
And I live practically right outside the wood. I live in Washington, bro. There's always somebody inviting you to something out in the woods.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to go to Costco, take $200. Well, you used to could take $200 and leave out with a bag full of meat.
Right.
So
now you walk out with a couple of things of sausage. But yeah, I mean, like down here, it's nice because you go in and I can bring back chicken. I put it in my freezer and I can buy it in a big volume and whatnot. Things like paper towels, I buy those here because if you've ever been south of the border, you know that, man, their paper products suck. So Kirkland brand paper towels are far better than anything that you'll find down here. I tell the story. You go to a local regular tienda here and buy paper towels that are made in Mexico. Number one, you push the paper towel, it will literally push the water right off your counter. Like there's no absorbency to it whatsoever. And in a feat of unbelievableness, not only does it just push it off like a squeegee, it disintegrates into lint. So you end up with a counter full of lint. And even though it didn't absorb anything. So it's like, wow, the certain things you just cannot get south of the border. So that's a Costco item that I appreciate having Costco or Sam's Club down here.
So Mike, I had a lot of people attack my little, I don't know what you call it. When we send out the little advertisements, the videos for the week's episode.
Sure. Last week's.
And I spoke about, how fast Trump does stuff, and I got attacked, and right in the midst of all the social media attacking on me, Trump had two things shift fast.
Yeah.
I ended up getting more examples of what I was saying. I'm sure you're aware of. He's already paused the tariffs on Canada and Mexico because they running, please, don't do it. But they was talking bad at first.
So what was the negative?
We'll put our tariff.
Let's talk about this though, Phil. What was the negative that you got? Like what was what's negative about what you said, that Trump's doing a lot of shit? Like what's negative about that?
Well, I had a couple of people. I live near Canada. I can be in Canada in 2 hours.
Yep.
So I know people in Canada, they just, they felt like I was being a nationalist. I was talking negatively about Canada. So that was one thing.
Okay.
But
I mean, let's go with facts here for a second.
But people really didn't address what I actually said. They assumed that because I said that I feel certain ways about other things. Like they thought that I'm on board for taking Canada and taking Mexico and all of that stuff.
Right. Well, can I just say something?
Didn't nobody say nothing to you about last week's?
Yeah, sure. I get, absolutely. And let me just address that for a second. I don't think people understand us.
They don't.
Yeah,
that's for real.
because I like to believe that we say it the way we see it. And just because, look, I'll give you an example statement. I can say in the first 2 weeks, Trump has accomplished a laundry list of things that he set out to do. And he's been moving at a very quick speed. And if I just say that, on the surface, the problem, what happens is half the people say, go Trump. Mike's right. He's doing what he said he was going to do. Blah, blah, blah. And the other half of the people go, Mike just said that. That means he supports everything that he's doing. And no, I did not say either one of those two things. All I said was, this is how I see it. This is what's going on. I wasn't making necessarily a judgment on whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. So that's probably unique to our show.
And I can tell when people see those videos, some of them, because they're scrolling.
Yep.
They see the words.
Yes.
Like it said, what is Trump's biggest accomplishment?
Yes. And they immediately, that's pro-Trump.
And they didn't hear what the accomplishment was. And it was all I was saying is that he's been doing things pretty fast. Yes. That's an accurate statement.
That's totally accurate, and particularly if you compare it to what was going on before. And this is not a judgment.
But look, I didn't say his actions were good. Right. I didn't say they were bad, effective, any of that. Nope. I just said he's got things moving fast. Exactly.
So let me just say something. It's been on my mind for a couple weeks now.
Say it.
And I've noticed, I'm going to ask you this, Phil. Have you noticed this in the last, let's just call it the last couple days, maybe two to maybe the last week? I think largely the first week of Trump was shock and awe, and largely the Democrats and the liberal left were either stunned, in a state of shock, quiet, didn't know what to do. But that's shifted over the last couple of days or into this past week. And now all of a sudden we're back to that loud noise of rhetoric. It's like it's back to what it was before the election. And all of a sudden, no matter what, people are taking sides one way or the other, regardless of facts, regardless of I'll give you an example. Right now, you've got two people going through confirmation hearings. You've got RFK, Kennedy, and Tulsi Gabbard. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, forget it. Tulsi Gabbard and Kennedy were both liberal, and they were both Democrats. Now, that's originally.
And they were considered more to the left than most.
Absolutely. And today, Tulsi Gabbard claims that she's changed parties. Robert Kennedy has made no such claim. But what you're going to notice across the board, everybody on the left is against them, period. Even if they were agreed with them before, it's now going back to just, I have to fall in line on team A or team B, and truthfully, I could say the same of the Republican and the conservative right side, is that they're going to support them no matter what argument about it, and they're supporting people that flash back 2 years, they hated both of them, right? Not even 2 years.
They are the left is going to be against them more than they would have been to anybody else who had turned coat. And yes. The reason is because you literally have two people who are on opposite ends of the power structure. Yep. You had JFK, who is part of the history of the Democratic Party. He's like a foundational family member.
Kennedy.
And then Tulsi is on the whole polar opposite of that. She's the young, up-and-coming new voice. And they both are like, we not with this.
Woman, ethnic background. I mean, yeah, they're screwed on these people. So I just wanted to get that out there. That's the first thing. The second thing is, argument. So one of the other current event things going on right now is that the Trump administration is trying to eliminate the Department of Education. Now, That's all of a sudden become fairly polarized as well, which is ironic because if you actually do some studies on this, both parties over the years have been against the Department of Education. It's been argued on both sides. Originally, the Department of Education was put in under Jimmy Carter, and nobody was super interested in it. He did it really to try to get reelected, which he failed at doing. And the Department of Education has never been popular with really anybody in the government, and over time has shown that it goes against the Constitution, because the government, those are education should be at the state level anyways, and even most Democrats have been over the course of the last 50 years have been on that argument as well. I mean, this isn't the first time it's been brought up to get rid of that department. So, but all of a sudden in the last 2 days, the Democrats are like, oh my God, Trump is invading the department. He's going to get rid of education. He's against it. No. This is not what the argument's about. But
that's
I got some good friends that are Democrats, but I tell you what, don't do it again. There's a reason that Trump is the president right now, and there's a reason that he took over the Senate and the Republicans have taken over the House and that they've got the Supreme Court. Don't go back to your dumb arguments. I want to say, I know I'm going to take flack as hell for saying this, but Democrats over the last 10 years have shown that they make terrible decisions. Mm-hmm. Terrible decisions. It's like they all took dumb pills. And the thing that I've noticed in this last week, they're back on the dumb pills again. They shut up for a little while, but all of a sudden they're back on the dumb pills. Now every one of them hates Elon Musk, right? They hate him. He's got insider government information that he shouldn't have, and blah blah blah, all this other bullshit. Which, if you guys think he didn't have that before,
that part ain't bullshit.
But if you think he didn't have that before, give me a fucking break.
Okay, I agree, bro. But
come on.
But it was informal. It's formal now, so it does make a difference. It even makes a difference in his ability when he steps in a room and has in a conference room and has a meeting. It's different now.
Oh, agreed. But what is he actually trying to do? Like, let's break this down for a second. Well, yeah, but you're right. We're right. But on the surface, their goal, their stated goal, is to eliminate unnecessary spending. I'm just going with the stated goal here, right?
So can I ask you a prediction on something?
Yep.
At the end of 4 years, if we are able to audit all of what they did, mm-hmm. do you think that they will have actually saved money, or the money will increase or stay the same? If you have to pick.
I mean, if you want to go historically, I would bet that we are not going to save money because the government is just by definition has no concept of how to do that.
They're basically going to be like, this is bad spending,
yep.
and show you that they stopped spending it, and then they're going to take that money and spend it over here.
It's something else. Yes, agreed. It's going to move. The question, the only thing that is to be seen is, does it improve our citizens and our country based on reallocating the money? That's the question that has to be answered. So I know you're shaking your head saying no, because, and I'll give you credit for this, based on past history, no. You take it from Boondoggle A and you put it on Boondoggle B. I mean, basically that's what's happened, right? I don't know.
The government, the money that the government takes from us every year,
mm-hmm.
all they're doing is taking this big hose that shoots out money that's been going mm-hmm. here and taking it and funneling it to their people.
Yes.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
let's just take another administration, the Bush administration, when they had what was it, Blackwater and
Yep. Blackwater. Yep. Yep.
Cheney
Dick
on.
Cheney. Yep.
They basically took all the money that they were sending one place to their people.
Yep.
That is all that's going to happen.
Yes.
Is the money is going to go to different people now.
Yep.
We aren't going to get anything out of that.
I can't argue with you on that. So the problem I have, though, is once again, I'm going to go back to this argument of the nonsense that you see people posting from a polarizing position. So I'll give you another example. I have a bunch of friends. It must be a meme on Facebook or something, but I've seen probably 10 different posts of people posting this. But very interesting, by the way. They're posting for this, and this affects or this is along our lines of discussion on this podcast. The National Park Service. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this post that was very anti-current administration, talking about, the dismantling of the National Park Service and everything. And there were, and I didn't see this post just once. I saw it maybe 10 different times. It's a big diatribe. It's like a 15-paragraph thing about what Trump's going to do and why it's bad and blah, 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 blah. And it makes it look like it comes from the National Park Service. Now, it comes from an organization called Alt National Park. And
okay.
but listen, but the people that post this, by and large, I don't think they know the difference between the National Park Service and this quote non-government connected entity. But this entity, by the way, was formed at the beginning of the last Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you recall, in the last administration, he went after a bunch of land. Everybody has their own theory on what our national land should be used for, et cetera, et cetera. So they started this because they're basically a group of, and by the way, self-admitted, greenpeople, super conservation, environmental people, right? So on the surface, when you see this argument against the Trump administration, it's very hard to take it seriously as somebody like myself that sort of tries to stay in the middle. How do you take something propaganda from, that's like listening to Newsmax on one side or MSNBC on the other. You can't take either one of these organizations seriously. I'm certainly not going to take the Alt National Park .org organization seriously either. And but what I'm saying is it's creating this polarization thing where all of a sudden everybody that is aligned with the left has jumped on board and is like, these are our talking points. We need to discuss this. This is what's going to happen. And meanwhile, you've got the other side. That's why
they lost.
And this is Phil. Okay. Thank you for summarizing what I was trying to say. That's what I was trying to get to. This is why you fucking lost. Wake up. Everybody that's a conservative or a Republican or on the right now, tune out. Do not listen to me. I'm only speaking to the left right now. This is why you lost. Come up with a new tactic because you're looking dumb. Okay. I just got off my soapbox now. But it's mind staggering. You're never going to beat Trump, bombastic asshole that he is. And look, this whole thing in the last 2 weeks with the trade war thing and Canada and Mexico, it's a bunch of loud shouting to try to get people to align and get your name out there. And you're not going to beat this guy with your tactic, because guess what? In 4 years from now, I'll make the prediction right this second. In 4 years from now, you guys that are bitching and moaning and groaning and supporting Alt National Park Service or whatever the fuck you're doing, your president of the United States is going to be J.D. Vance. Mark my words.
Mike, I'm gonna go a little deep dive into the Democrats' issue. They
have the lowest approval rating that the Democratic Party's ever had right now. The lowest approval rating in history.
There are a multitude of issues that a political party can take on. Particular issues, some particular issues only involve certain people. The Democratic Party has decided to make their banner issues what a majority of people do not agree with.
Or don't give a shit about.
Right.
Yes, agreed.
And as long as they feel like they're right, nothing's going to happen.
Nope.
And here's something that I want to say, Mike. If your ideology and the morals and ethics of your ideology require decades of what I call grooming to get people's mindsets to start thinking what you say is okay and acceptable, and then there's probably something wrong about your ideologies. Mm-hmm. If it's taken decades of you slipping professors into schools that have your ideology to groom the students, if it's taken decades of you changing the plots to movies slightly to get people to kind of have a callous emotion towards seeing certain things, then it's a good chance that your ideology is not the right one. And I made a point of using the word grooming, and I meant it as the pun that you may, anybody listening, whatever pun you thought you got out of it, I mean it. The Democrats are groomers. A majority of their ideologies are disturbing to most people, and they have, over the decades, exactly what I'm saying, they have used media, they have used education, they've used not medication.
Yeah, medication probably too.
If we dive a little deeper, yes, but medicine. The laws of medicine, the regulations of medicine, thing like they've literally took the time over the decades to change all of those things to groom you into things that you have a natural knee-jerk reaction to, and now it's acceptable to you. Or maybe you haven't gotten to that point, but they're forcing you to be conditioned and react a certain way toward it. If all of those things are involved in a political party, you know, they like to use the H word, the German H word on Trump. Mm-hmm. But what I just described to you is more like the H word than anything that they say about the Republican Party. I see all the indoctrination going on. I've experienced it, bro. I've experienced it living in Chicago, having family involved in politics, being in a Democratic city, one of the most major Democratic cities. You are indoctrinated from go.
Yeah.
Soon as you birthed.
I can use ChatGPT.
Matter of fact, the way you're birthed is affected in Chicago by being a Democrat. Everything is Democratic. And it's hard for a lot of people, if you grew up in that environment, to even realize that they are part of a cult or being indoctrinated. Yes, I use those words, and I can back them up with showing you things that are done, behaviors that are done, that are normally, that's what you call them. Am I going too far, Mike?
No, I don't think so at all, Phil. I mean, you're right. And I think that, you know, I feel like I want to run to be the Democratic Party their new leader or something, because they need a change of direction. You can't, like, that system has run it. In my opinion, what you just described has run its course. I think people in today's society with social media and information technology that travels at the speed of light, I think people have caught on to it now and have realized that they're being groomed. And I think that has run its course. I think, and by the way, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why Trump won is because he's the complete polar opposite of that. He's chaotic. I mean, there's no grooming going on. He's beating you like a seal with a bat. It's totally different. It's a totally different vibe. And I think America has responded in such a way that they've said, we're done being groomed. And by the way, this goes to my argument about the Department of Education. One of the main arguments against it is that nobody on either side for many years has really wanted the federal government at that level to decide what the children, how to educate the youth. That should be decided by their parents and their teachers and local people. And the problem was, what's happened is when you they've added program after program after program. And what it filters down all of a sudden to the state level is that, if we want to get our funding to build our new wing on the school, we have to teach this. And so now all of a sudden you've got your politicians, which we all know are controlled by money and lobbyists, are now deciding what the curriculum is for the kids. That's why the Department of Education, in my opinion, should go away. I think they should. I think they should take it out as well. But that goes to your indoctrination and your grooming. And where does that happen? It happens in the school, right?
Before we have a board of education, there needs to be legal clarity on what the American government feels about education in general. Because the reality is, there's nowhere written on any legal document that has anything to do with the United States that says there's an obligation to educate anyone at any level.
And that's why the department goes against the Constitution, essentially.
So I am not against there being an amendment where they say that America stands by the edict that every person has the right to be educated. I have no issue with that.
Correct.
But it needs to be decided whether or not we're in or we're out. And if we decide that we're in, there needs to be some new formal, I don't think there needs to be a new organization. There needs to be kind of like a constitution for education, stop, and then let the states handle themselves.
Exactly. There should be choice, right? I think that's what people are craving. And in fact, I think that's human beings by nature like choice. We like to believe that we're making our own decisions in some way. Now, I get most of the time we're not making our own decisions, but when it comes from the federal government, as we talked about earlier, both of us are fairly pessimistic that there's going to be any significant change. And why is that? Because the federal government is notoriously, it's such a big organization. It's not going to be good at anything at ground level. It can handle things at the 30,000 foot level, right? It can handle concepts and ideas, and it can make money and make a structure. But when you want it to decide, what color your history textbook is, or should it talk about Christopher Columbus or the Vikings or not, or whatever, that is not. I don't want Bernie Sanders and Mitch McConnell deciding, should we be talking about the Vikings in my history book? Those guys are, not the guys I want deciding that.
And let's just look historically for a second about education in America for people in general. It used to only be for a certain echelon of people. So right. I'm excluding that. I'm talking about once it became more of a mass thing, more middle class people started getting educated. It used to be that a family, parents, they would try to do whatever they could to get their child an education. And what they were looking for was reading, writing, and arithmetic, and whatever other skills necessary for them to perform in a career. This goes back
Man, have
to,
we gone away from that?
we've gone to grooming, where now the average person, you talk to them about what education should provide. It should provide reading, writing, arithmetic. It should allow for social issues. It should be a place, a sanctuary for transgender children to talk to someone away from their parents and make decisions.
No one should win a kickball game ever.
So they have literally made the education system like a third parent with more power. So, like, out of the three parents, if we're in a disagreement, they're the parent that has the most power, and they get to win.
Right.
I experienced it with the child going through this education system not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and it was disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a lot to talk about, but I mean, that's my big statement for today's podcast is, if you guys out there want change and you don't like the change that's occurring right now, and I'd argue, like I said at the top of the year this year, I'd argue that there's a lot of change going on pretty quickly right now. And I get there's a lot of noise, and not everything is just because you can make a presidential declaration or an edict that goes out doesn't mean it's going to happen. But I would argue that there are quite a few things that are changing. And even if it's not necessarily laws, there are definitely principles and thought processes and traditions that are changing very, very rapidly right now. So if you don't like that, you can fight it. You have every right to. But I would not do it in the way that you've been doing it for the last 10 years. That's my statement. That's my recommendation to all my friends out there that are not supportive of Donald Trump or the current administration, is you better take the different tack, because otherwise you're really just giving the guy more power.
Mike, we're going to switch gears now.
Okay.
This should be right up your alley. You being a pilot.
Okay.
We got to talk about it. And I don't even know what direction to come at this. I want to talk about the two airplane crashes that we had recently. You can either give your opinion of what you think happened. You can talk about Trump and his DEI claims against the people who were involved in one of the crash. Whatever direction you want to come from, I would love to hear it.
Well, first of all, I mean, it is super saddening to see it happen. I got to tell you that particularly the one in Pennsylvania, where this poor girl, went through life-saving.
Wow.
Can you imagine going life-saving surgery or treatment with her family, and then gets on a plane only to be on a plane for about a minute before getting killed? And by the way, those were all Mexican nationals. So they flew this particular girl in from Mexico to
Maria
Shriners. Yeah.
I've spoken to you personally, and I've talked about it on the podcast. I've had a similar experience where I've had to fly with my daughter on a life-saving a plane that looked almost identical to that plane.
Yeah, medevac jet. Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I don't know. Early reports on that accident are hard to say. That points, unusually, by the way, most of you guys probably out there know this, but almost 90% of aircraft incidences are human error. they're almost always human error. That one in Philadelphia particularly looks like there's a potential that was not human error, that was a mechanical problem. Um, the one in Washington D.C. is hugely problematic. Man, does that make for a less than how would I say this? Less than uh, optimistic approach to our federal aviation system, because as somebody that often flies, getting on a plane, I mean, you got to have second. I mean, here these poor people are flying halfway across the country literally within 20 seconds of wheels down on the ground, and boom, gone. And all because they're in people, I don't know if people are aware of this, but they were not that runway, but the main runway at Reagan Airport there is the busiest runway in America. And that airport is in some very difficult airspace. There's a lot of traffic that goes in and out of there, particularly for government people and people that live in the city or in and around Washington, D.C. And as if you're familiar with that area, right across, on the other side there is a helicopter base. There's a lot going on. The Pentagon's right there. I've landed at that airport. I can't tell you how many times you come in and all you see is
I used to live there.
You see, oh yeah, you see exactly. You see helicopters. You see water. You see everything but what you want to see until the very last second, and oh shit, there's the runway.
And I saw a lot of the comments people made about the crash, and they're not understanding. So I'm glad you're saying this. Like, helicopters flying around DC is a every hour occurrence, not a every day, not a every week, and every hour.
Yeah, all over the place. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you my pilot likely prediction on this thing. What it looks like. And this is by no means definitive, but what it looks like everything else, and typical in aviation incidents, is it was probably human error, but it falls on a multitude of things. Probably the largest cause looks like the helicopter was flying at the wrong altitude for, it's supposed to be restricted to under 200 feet there. Basically, they scud run along the river, and it looked like it was higher than it should have been, particularly when you're at the you're in a flight pattern for a runway that's right there. The other thing is they probably were wearing night vision, because the Blackhawks are super advanced aircraft. They've got glass cockpits, they got heads up displays, they got TCAS, they got all sorts of stuff on board that. So the likelihood that, probably something was screaming at them, maybe not to the last second, or they turned it off. That's probably also an option because there's so much traffic and so much terrain around there. It's possible they turned off their collision avoidance system because it just keeps, setting off false alarms. But it's likely that that's what happened. And it now looks like, I just saw in the news that it looks like, based on the flight data recorders, that the CRJ jet, the American Airlines, attempted to do a turn at the very last second. So they saw it. They saw the incoming, and they tried to cut real fast and get out of the way. Whether or not the Blackhawk ever saw them is hard to tell. It certainly, if you look at the video, it didn't look like they just looked like they ran right into them. But and then there's been a lot of discussion about the air traffic control. They said, well, one guy went home early, which of course they don't tell you that typically happens just about every day, and that it's not unusual for have one person in that tower controlling those things. And I'm gonna rain on the DEI hiring parade. This is why I don't like Trump. That has got to be the dumbest thing to say at a. I'm sorry. Give me a break. Is it possible that could diminish your skill set across the board in the FAA, in your control towers? Yes, of course. What did that have anything to do with this particular accident? I mean, that's like saying the other side said, Trump said he was going to eliminate these jobs and get rid of this, and this is it. And then all in a week, look what happened. He caused a plane crash. I mean, that's the most asinine statement I've ever heard, too. So, no, I don't think it.
I've got a completely different DEI angle,
Okay.
and people probably would have thought I had yours.
Okay.
I think it shouldn't have been included in the. Let's say that was the exact reason that it
Okay.
was.
Yep. Hypothetically, yeah.
The president shouldn't have said it.
No, exactly. Particularly like hours after the accident.
Oh, well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't mean he should have just never said it, but he shouldn't have said it then.
No.
But most people have not listened to the whole clip, which is usually the case in most of these situations.
That's true.
And like, for instance, I've had someone, so I'm glad we're talking about this, message me about the podcast.
Oh, really?
They wanted me to bring this up.
Okay.
And they wanted to know where my head was at and everything.
Okay.
Because in their mind, the DEI thing was him basically saying, it must be some blacks up there in the tower or in the helicopter or whatever. But if you listen,
or even worse, I mean, they could have been female black.
Oh man, I better not find out that's what happened. But if you listen to what he said, he defined for you who were the groups that he was being ist to.
Yeah.
He said he was talking about mental illnesses and physical incapacities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think this was the time to bring that up.
No.
But this is something that I've had to hold back on for a long time, and this may not be, I might get canceled for saying this.
This is a good format to say it in, Phil. This is the Anything Goes podcast, so you're okay here.
Okay, all right.
Unless we get kicked off of Spotify or something.
No, but even if what you're saying is true, it's kind of like looked upon that you don't say nothing negative about the military.
Yes.
And I'm one of them people that kind of holds people to that. I actually kind of feel that way. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm always worried when I was in Alaska, I had a guy, he had his own private plane and he flew me over to McDonald or Lake Clark National Park to see the bears, right?
Yep.
And he was an old military guy. And everybody who I've told the story, it's very romantic to them. But always in the back of my mind was, I hope this motherfucker don't have no PTSD moment on the plane. Yep. And I've had similar thoughts like that every time I've been on a plane. I've been on a plane and the guy gets on and he's like, I've got 20 years. I fought in Nam and this, that, and other. I'm like, right. It's not that I have anything against him. Right. It's just they done spent so many millions of dollars. There's so many 501 charities that constantly have hit me up telling me about how they can't handle certain situations and it always comes back. So I'm going by what your feedback is.
Right.
So it's a concern to me.
Yeah, sure.
And because people are so nervous about touching this topic, I have not heard one person bring up the idea that it could have been a suicide.
It could have been.
And you never hear. It's like when I told you about jury nullification. It's a legal thing, but it's a no-no to bring that word up. Right. It's a no-no to discuss the idea of mental insanity, mental incapacity, mental disability, and you fly in the plane. Because they want to keep people with a certain kind of mentality that you feel safe.
Yeah.
But I believe that there have been some crashes that they've told you, oh, it was one thing and it was nothing more than the guy was pissed that day.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, for sure. We've had suicide crashes that I think it was Egypt Air off the coast of Nova Scotia.
So,
That was a suicide.
I'm headed somewhere about the DEI. This is what he talked about when he gave the categories.
I know.
These are the things he was talking about. Mm-hmm. So with that added coloring to the story, I didn't get what other people are getting. I didn't get the racial component, and he may have had it. So no, I ain't gonna defend him.
I didn't even get it either.
But
like
he specifically said what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
That's my opinion.
I agree. I mean, I think the most likely. I hate to say this out loud, but probably the most likely scenario was a combination of, like I said, human error, where they were flying a little bit too high. They didn't pay attention to their altimeter. They were flying all manual, like anybody else, there's three people in a cockpit, and they're having a conversation about, can't wait to land. Let's all go to TGI Fridays, get some ribs, and have a couple beers. And there was some distraction.
I think everything you said was valid, and I think everything that you mentioned probably has something to do with it. But if I had to give you what I guess, and I'm not a pilot, so I defer to you, but I still have an opinion. And my opinion is, from looking at the video and watching the audio that went with it, it appeared to me that they were confident that plane that you see that flies straight up in the video, that was the one they were tracking. That was the one that they were giving the confirmation.
Yeah, they were looking at the wrong plane.
That's what I think. I don't think that. And then the part where you say that other plane made its little move, it was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Is the helicopter responded to the tower and said, "Yes, confirm. We have the jet in visual." The problem is they had the wrong jet in visual. That is the argument for the understaffing on in the tower, however, because for those of us that have talked to towers a lot, know that the more people that are on the radio, the faster they can get confirmations back and forth. So if there were two tower guys, one guy could have been talking to the jet, and one guy could have been talking to the helicopter. It could have been communicated quicker, but there's a delay between I'm talking to you, now I'm talking to you, let me get confirmation, and that obviously was significant. But it still doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, numbers don't lie, and if the helicopter indeed was at 320 feet in altitude, it was flying where it was not. It was basically prohibited from flying. So that's a problem. And that likely, I mean, unless it was an instrument error, which is very difficult to believe, that's a human error.
It's kind of, for a tech guy like me, it's an old wives' tale that a lot of people will use as, oh, something happened with my computer, or my phone, or whatever. And I go ahead, no, those things don't generally happen like how we say.
No,
we don't have as many glitches as.
No.
I also think they had on those night visions too. I've had the opportunity to use several different types of night vision, and all of them, one thing that they have very similar is if there's a flash of light, you lose all your sight. It's like literally white in front of you after that.
Yep.
And the other is if nothing goes wrong, just taking them on and off, there's like about I guess it depends on your particular eyes, but I'd say there's like a 1.5 to 2 second moment of adjustment for the light if everything goes well.
Yep. And they have the kind that you can flick up and down, but yeah, likely that has to do with when the tower said, "Do you have the jet in visual?" What do? You look at it, you see it, and there's your either adjustment period or they were blinded by the light, like you said, and lost some visual for a while, which they could have lost sight of what altitude they were at. It doesn't take long. Let's put it that way. I mean, it's agonizing to watch the video, and it looks like, they've got lots of time. Because
you're looking at the same plane that I think they're looking at. You're like, oh, yeah, he sees that plane, and you never see the other plane. You just see the explosion.
Exactly. That's right.
And why was that plane like so unlit? I mean, I know they only have
because
lights on them.
It's the angle of the camera. That's what's misleading, because we're looking at the one that has its headlights on that we can see, but we're looking away from the one that's going to land, and that's so you don't see the lights. It's the angle, which, by the way, the helicopter probably had the same thing, because it looked like the plane was, if the plane was going straight, the helicopter was coming in at a right quartering angle, right? So it wasn't coming in directly at it. It's hard to tell by those videos. If you watch all of them, you can kind of tell what the angle was. So I don't think, likely they didn't. I mean, obviously they didn't see it.
Did you even hear the tone of his voice? Because they asked him more than once, do you see, to give confirmation? And he was almost like, kind of like, yeah, I said I saw him. He was kind of like, yeah.
Yep.
They were confident that they were tracking the right plane.
It's unclear who was flying the helicopter too. There was,
which leads me to believe that it's the person that they don't want it to be.
Well, I think the girl was flying it. I do think that she was in command of probably the PIC. I think the radio communication was from the co-pilot. That would be somewhat typical. So that's kind of probably what happened. They're not saying that, but that would be. If I had to take a guess, since the guy on the radio was the guy, likely she was flying, but.
And the logic that a lot of people are using as to why she isn't is actually the opposite.
Right.
A lot of people are like, well, each of the guys had like over 1,500 hours, blah, 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 and she had like 500. Yeah. So it would be one of them flying. And they're like, no, if you got a newbie with only 500, more than likely they immediately, she was automatically stuck as the pilot. This is some good training. You're not in battle. And
right. Yeah. Which, by the way, just for those people listening out there, 500 hours on that particular aircraft is a lot. So they were all experienced pilots, all three of them.
But I think it has something to do with your pay and ability to get rank. You have to have X amount of hours in the military in a certain amount of time.
Yep.
So they're like vying for hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But have you heard about her background and why? This is why I believe that it's not hard to find out who was flying the plane. But to this point still, today, Tuesday, February 4th, right. So I'm thinking it's her, but do you know any of the background story about her and things like that?
I mean, I saw some of it. Some of it's hard.
One thing is there's an outside entity that I haven't been able to get an actual name to that washed all of her social media.
I saw that. And that in itself just is some weird stuff, right? Like her social media gets wiped. Then you find out. Then all you see is pictures of her escorting, some people into a ceremony under the Biden administration.
Oh, that ain't all I saw.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole mess of stuff. No, I mean there's more, but
she was they showing her at pride parades and with
I didn't see that.
With her partner and everything.
Oh, okay.
So I could be totally wrong, but I believe that there was an agenda. Like they were like, well, we don't want to put that out because she'll be attacked for that. And I'm actually with that. I don't want her to be attacked for any of that.
No, because that's irrelevant to the accident. Yeah.
But I'm saying I believe that that's the posturing and politics that's going on.
Yes, unfortunately.
Because he's already tried to throw in DEI. and
Right.
she would just be perfect.
Right. Yeah.
Mike, ooh,
Woo!
um,
Woo! Let me guess. We made it through an hour.
no, we've way past an hour.
Oh no.
I wanted to talk about birthright citizenship.
Well, let's talk about that next week
Hmm.
because it's still
So,
going to be here.
yeah, so anybody listening, if you've got some questions or some thoughts, message me and I'll make sure to talk about it.
And send me a message, and all those my fellow Democratic friends that I addressed earlier in the podcast. I want to hear from you. Comments, send something in. Give Phil and I some reason to change our minds about what I said.
All right, Mike, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
That's it. Have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.